In this episode of Iconic Corners in Motorsport, we explore a corner complex that never got the recognition it deserved, the Big Loop at the lost Nivelles circuit in Belgium. While many have dismissed Nivelles as a flat and uninspiring circuit, the reality is that it contains some truly challenging corners and rewarding sections. Among them, the Big Loop stood out as a test of bravery and skill. The Circuit of Nivelles opened in 1971 as a modern replacement to the original Spa-Francorchamps, which at that time was considered to be too dangerous for contemporary Formula One racing. Designed by Dutch architect John Hugenholtz, the mastermind behind Suzuka, Harama and Hockenheim's Motordrome section, Nivelles was built with advanced safety features, featuring large runoff areas and smooth flowing corners. However, instead of being celebrated for its forward-thinking design, Nivelles was met with criticism. Formula One drivers found it too safe, too forgiving, and most damning of all, too boring. Unlike Spa, with its terrifying high-speed corners, elevation changes and narrow roads through the Ardennes forest, Nivelles was a compact autodrome, lacking the dramatic scenery and fear factor of its predecessor. But while many wrote off the track as uninspiring, those who truly studied its layout, or better yet, drove it, knew that they had something special. And that something was the Big Loop. The Big Loop was actually the unofficial name of turns 2 and 3. After the opening right-hander, the Big Loop section began with a short descending straight, leading into a fast sweeping right-hander. As the car climbed slightly uphill, the driver had to fully commit, trusting the grip whilst preparing for an even faster right-hand curve. This second corner, often compared to the famous Scheivlak at Zandvoort, but even faster, was a breathtakingly fast downhill turn that rewarded bravery and punished hesitation. If you got it wrong, you'd be running wide and into trouble, but if you got it right, it felt incredible. Unfortunately, despite its excitement, the Big Loop was somewhat wasted within the overall layout. Ideally, it should have led into a long straight where drivers could maximise the speed they carried through it. Instead, after just a brief moment to shift from the left-hand side of the track to the right, drivers had to brake hard for turn 4, a slower corner that killed the momentum. The thrill of the Big Loop was undeniable, but the reward for taking it to its absolute limit was really quite minimal. Despite hosting 2 Formula One races for the Belgian Grand Prix in 1972 and 1974, Nivelles struggled financially. The track was never fully completed as planned, with its originally intended 5.9km layout reduced to just 3.7km due to budgeting constraints. When Formula One left in favour of Zolder, the circuit was left with a few high-profile events just about sustaining it. But by 1981 the track had fallen into disrepair and was officially closed. However, for the nearly 2 decades that followed, it remained abandoned, a ghost circuit, left to nature and urban explorers. During the 1980s, Nivelles became a hotspot for illegal racing. With no active security and a layout still intact, that meant the local racers could take to the track, turning the deserted autodrome into an underground motorsport playground, if you will. It wasn't until 1998 that plans were finally finalised to redevelop the area, leading to the demolishment of the track in 1999. Unlike many abandoned circuits that have faded into history, parts of Nivelles still exist, if you know where to look, that is. The Big Loop, in particular, survived the redevelopment process and was repurposed as public road within an industrial park. The transformation of the Big Loop is fascinating. What was once a high-speed adrenaline corner is now a quiet, unremarkable road used by trucks and commuters. But if you compare old track maps to the current road layout, you can still see the shape of the Big Loop hiding in plain sight. Photographs from the reconstruction period show the Big Loop being repaved and converted into a functional road, a process that erased its racing legacy whilst preserving its shape. During visits to the site over time, remnants of another part of the track were still visible for years, including sections of asphalt and faded curbing. However, this section has now also changed into an industrial park too. Had Nivelles remained on the calendar, perhaps the Big Loop would have earned its legendary status that it deserved, but the track's short lifespan meant it never really had the chance to prove itself. The tragedy of Nivelles isn't that it was lost, but that really it was misunderstood. It was ahead of its time in safety, but behind in financial sustainability. Its big loop had the ingredients of an iconic corner, committed, elevation change and high speed, but it was never really given the stage to shine. Would the big loop have been remembered differently if Nivelles had been a long-term F1 venue? Would it have been spoken about in the same breadth as Suzuka's 130R or Spa's Blanchiment? Let us know down in the comments what you think, and if you love exploring forgotten circuits and legendary corners of motorsport history, make sure to subscribe to Circuits of the Past for more deep dives into legendary and lost tracks. For more stories about abandoned racetracks, visit circuitsofthepast.com, and there's a free ebook about 7 lost tracks that you can still visit legally to download too. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.